Right. Mr. Simpson. Mr. Simpson, right. The next 3 or 4 pages.
Maybe you could get some of those 40,000 pledges to get that $10,000 to run that challenge.
I have an opinion on Bruce's submission, and that is that I think it's got some merit in that we don't spend the $260,000 on relaying the runway at this stage. Whether that's deferred or cancelled indefinitely is open to discussion, and that's about as much opinion as I've got on it. The rest of it doesn't really float with me, but I think in the long term, the amount of use it gets, we can probably patch that runway for another 20 years without it deteriorating any further. Whether it be delisted in time, I'm open to a discussion on that, but I think at the end of the day, if they did that, the only person that it really benefits in the short term is Mr. Simpson. But we can certainly save some money by not doing that resealing.
Right. A couple of the sort of things in there in which I think Mr. Simpson presented well, but he presented in terms of the points that he wished to make, very, very well. So we could talk about whether we priced Waterhouse, talking about businesses, when we are talking about retail, and he put it over the whole thing, and we weren't doing these things. And again, that we were resealing it for one pilot. Well, you actually had a survey over the airport and had that airport plan come in, and on which it's available to everybody. But at the time we actually had the drags and the driver safety and a lot of other areas using the airport rather than just that one pilot, and the model air people and that. So there was a lot of other people using it, and we had a very full discussion over that both Councillor Shattuck and I were wrong last night as we were talking about where that 259,000 comes from. That 259,000 is not rate money, it's actually coming out of the selling and the felling of the trees.
Not all of it. You're not going to get 259k for those trees, are you?
The officers tell me that they do.
That and the sale of the land next to it.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So that's where that money, is coming from. And so I take the point that, okay, are we deferring it? And the answer is probably yes. If that money wasn't spent, and again, Mr. Simpson did it very well yesterday, which I expect to see in the paper and somewhere. If you don't spend it on the airport, you can give it to the farmers. Well, you can't. It's not the way the world works in that, but it certainly was a nice, yes, I know you'd love it, but sitting in there, if the trees come down and they go into our asset replacement program. So you can't go handing it out willy-nilly. But it was a nice point. It was like others that, we haven't done anything for the ultra-flight broadband. Well, we've had several meetings and we've attempted and we've talked for call centres, but it made good sounding. So that sitting in there, that my biggest concern was that he said he had this $40,000 and everybody wanted to come, but we have somebody like Alan Moss sitting down there for business development, that if he'd ever been approached and said, hey, come on, this is where it is, things could take place. Mr. Hobbs has written one email to the name and nothing came of it. But it's not much use talking if you don't come and present us with the information and say this is where you want to go, because Mr. Moss in particular is very active in chasing up anything that could take place. And if you don't give them the information, you just throw things and say you haven't done anything. I find it difficult. In terms of the doctor, poor Dr. Kenny was, a small thing on stuff that then just blew out. And I got those emails from people and we said, hey, and that the general feeling then from the ones that I replied was it's almost one of laughter, what the hell are you talking about, blowing this up. It was actually that. So just generally in there that we have attempted to do things, and the idea is to improve. I sincerely hope that he comes along as positive and works with people like Alan downstairs and does things. Are drones going to be a part of the future? Yes, they probably will be, but if you listen to TV the other night, every man and his dog appears to be doing drones right now, and the legality part of them is now actually rising. Councillor, mention Councillor McGill, did have Councillor there, thank you.
As I stated yesterday to Mr Simpson, he's been on this crusade for some time about the deregistration of the airfield and then the council ignoring him. I believe that we should, and the last little bit of his submission 68B says his proposal would be the resurfacing or that it be deferred for 2 years. And I would say I would go along with that as long as there's not going to be any major degradation to that runway. In 2 years' time, we'll cut the trees down and we'll have some money in our asset reserve account. The other half is this deregistration issue. I've made a few inquiries about it, and all I could find out after a very quick inquiry last night was that deregistration could affect the insurance of people who fly from there, and we currently have one. There may be another person coming up because there's a hangar under consideration for sale out there. But 2 people is not very many, and it also may affect the CTC and their flying, and we would lose the $5,000 we get off them a year for their touch and goes. But I would really like to see us get a paper put together to see is there any other pluses and minuses in deregistration? How much would it cost to deregister, and then if we wanted to re-register, what would it cost? Give us some options there, and I would suggest we write back to Mr Simpson, if everybody's in agreement saying yes, we agree, we're going to defer the runway resealing, we are going to look seriously at the registration of the airfield, and we urge him, if he has any inquiries from businesses looking to set up and take over, to approach the appropriate people in council.
Councillor Doisina.
Just on regards to the airport 35 years ago when I came to town was fairly busy. There used to be regular flights, Tokoroa, Auckland, from NZ Forest Products taking their staff back and forth, and also the computer tapes that used to go to Auckland to be analysed and then the data sent back the next day on the plane. That's long gone, and since then, 30 years, I've just seen a steady decline of the local enthusiasts that used to fly. There used to be at least a dozen with planes down there. And we're going to a situation where it's not needed as an airport. I can't see any point in us, as this little body in the South Waikato, keeping an airport. Exactly. So the deregistration part of it, that can wait. The reselling is a waste of money, and I think we should look to deploy our resources elsewhere. If we get money from the sale of the trees, there's plenty of useful projects in the district that could use that money.
All right, okay, Councillor.
I agree totally with what Baron and Bill have just said, and I endorse everything they say. I mean, obviously Baron's going a bit further than Bill insofar as suggesting that we look at deployment, we look at selling really, or disposing of the land at the airport. I think Baron's quite right. The use of it does not justify the continued existence of the airport.
We had...
In my opinion, can I just finish, please?
No, I'm just going to say, hey, you adopted a report not so long ago that said, hey, it was a community facility that had areas, and we'll get that report.
Yeah, but as you say, there's lots of things that have changed since then, and we're in time to change our mind on where we stand. But anyway, the money for the immediate thing is the money for the reselling. I'm not in favour of it. I do think, to be fair, I get the impression that Mr Simpson, whether rightly or wrongly, feels that he has been not treated. He feels that he hasn't been treated fairly by council. Now, I'm not suggesting whether that's justified or not, but actually he strikes me as a reasonably intelligent man, with and I think he still deserves courtesy. And that's where I agree with Bill insofar as to say, when we look at the question of delisting and the pros and cons of that as an airport, and that we encourage him to utilise our economic development person in the council, so that he's made to feel perhaps a little bit more welcome, because I think he doesn't feel that it's right. I'm not saying that's justified, but I'm sure that's how he perceives things.
He came after our public annual meeting at the Sports and Events Centre and congratulated Mr. Hobbs, and said thank you. Is that correct?
On the process to make
Yeah. So that he has been asked and sort of said, hey, that, and we have said, Councillor Shannon.
I've got, I did some, got some information about the responses and that as well. And I'll just read what I've received. In times of emergency, the delivery, and we've got reference to emergencies for using the airport, the delivery of relief and support by air is now done by helicopter. Fixed wing aircraft operated by Air Force for military and civil defence purposes are all too big to use and can't operate on a short runway like we've got. Flying full-sized aircraft is no longer an activity, and evidently recently the Tokoroa Aero Club claimed it was insolvent and requested relief on the ground lease, paid for its club rooms, is that right? So that's it. So they're not flying anymore. The primary community use of the airfield is the flying of RC models. That's one, the Advanced Driver Training School and the drags. So none of these activities require a runway maintained to aviation standards, which we had planned to do. There is in fact just one single member of the South Waikato community who uses the sealed runway for a full-sized aircraft that can take off and land within the 850 metres. And delisting the airfield would allow the runway to be maintained to a lower standard, but still perfectly adequate for the level of use that it would receive, and it wouldn't impact on any other groups that use it.
CTC?
Pardon?
CTC?
The touch and goes.
They
do the touch and goes, but they don't use 850 metres of the airport. He said I've got here is it wouldn't impact on any of the users.
If it was deregistered.
If it was deregistered.
Yeah. Who's that from, sir?
This is information I've received from Bruce.
Right.
Yeah.
Because
Right.
CTC
Hang on, please, if I can finish. So what I'm suggesting is that we defer the funding, and that will allow us an unemotional investigation into this whole issue. I was one of the ones that supported it becoming a community airfield a couple of years ago. I now think and especially if we've got, where does the money come from? It's coming from the trees and does that cover the whole lot?
From the fact,
No, it's from the sale of the trees
Yeah,
we will, and the land that we plan to sell for the racing club.
Okay.
So I would like then just an investigation into the whole issue, and I'm supporting deferring it for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it won't stop any of the other use that we have on that airfield.
That was the report you received in January 2015. All right?
We'll change their minds.
No, yeah, that's all right, but just recognise that, okay, it's not 2 years ago and it's not a long time ago, and you then actually debated this as a report, as a very full report that talked about usage of the CTC, and that when you then said, okay, we will, back in 2015, you then said this is the way you're going to see it. So staff then brought this forward because we made the decision. Certainly we can change our minds, but recognise that we made that in 2015.
We do recognise that.
And we're now saying, now the delisting of it and what then takes place is now sort of raised, but it is part of the whole area down there. But sitting in the back of it, and I think that even as we, get surprised that there is you've all got that report, have a look at it, be Supercross and the rest of what the people are using it is quite amazing. It was one of our very, very good reports that came in through. And so what I'm saying is pay, as we discuss it now, make what's it and we've actually read the report, because why did we make those decisions earlier? We have changed our minds, but...
Circumstances have changed.
Huh?
Circumstances have changed.
Well, I'm not too sure how many circumstances. I read this in 215.
That takes in that whole area of the go-karts, the motocross, the
Yep.
airport, everything. So that's a much wider report than what we're talking about at this stage.
And so that, if you...
And I think, sir, the other factor is that I know from my own self, I was optimistic and had this sort of glass half full scenario that perhaps the airfield will come back to its former glory,
Oh, I don't think it's it.
But, I'm just saying this, I had that view, that perhaps that was a possibility. But now I have, over the last year or so, come to the view that it is a dead duck, and we would be far better served as a proper asset manager and owner to sell. I'd go further than what these other people say.
If you sold the kart club, the kart club, which is a national thing, would be involved. Your modelers, your drags would be involved. Your supercross would be involved. All those would be involved in terms of sale. Yeah. The implications to the...
Well, that's just my own view.
Yeah. Whether it be motocross up the top and all those in terms of sale of that down there.
So I still support the whole
Oh,
area,
yeah.
absolutely,
So
but
that's-
it's just the runway,
Yeah.
it's just whether we maintain it to that level or that level, which is appropriate to the usage, and the usage has declined in this last 2 years.
And
So that's where I'm coming from.
I'm just answering Councillor McCaw, he
Yeah.
wanted to sell the whole lot.
Oh, yes, I know, and so I'm down then saying
All right.
that.
Through you, Bishop, I think the question is more around the economic opportunity that the airport presents, and then making a decision off that. And the reason I say that is that, and I may have these figures wrong and it may not be correct now, but certainly at a user group meeting we had here about 2 years ago, I understand there's about 5 or 6 people that own planes living in Tokoroa, but the majority of them have moved them out of Tokoroa and are now based out of Taupo and Matamata because of the strife at the airport, because of an individual's actions. There's also, regardless of what we do and who we bring in there, unless we address the underlying issue of the conflict out there, we're always going to have problems. In terms of Mr Simpson's submission around the economic opportunities and businesses coming here, the ones that I got contacted through, there was one particular one that Councillor Machen's seen the email that came to me and the response back. They are watching what he's doing, because there's a lot of people trying to work on sense and avoid systems around the world. Drones are huge. People are trying to develop this technology. Someone's going to get lucky, and all these big boys want to be on the back of that when it happens to be able to secure it. Reality is they're not going to come and invest in a business in drones on the back of what's happening currently. So, is there another opportunity for the airstrip? Can we better utilise it for economic return to the town?
That would cost us less. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've got. CTC. We're getting some money out of it at the moment. Probably the most, in terms of economic value to the town, in my opinion, the biggest opportunity or the biggest value that we're realising is through the jet modelers, because they do fill up every motel. They fill up the
But
restaurants.
they still are able to. It would make no difference to them at all if that was delisted.
True. It wouldn't
Yeah,
be
or if it's not maintained to that top standard, because they only use the part right in front of where it would be 30 metres maybe.
Yeah. So, and in terms of income, and correct me if I'm wrong in this sense, the greatest income streams are the car club, not driver safety, advanced driver safety. So they need a
Safety driving.
Yeah. So again, not an airstrip, but they need a surface. The other one, CTC are now paying a fee, so it's not a huge amount, but there is money coming in from there. So I think, as I say, my comment is around what is the opportunity out there, and at the moment it's sort of developed